Hi, welcome back. This is Powering Ahead, a YouTube series from Her Money Talks, and I'm your host, Ashwati. Women simply love to share and relate to others' experiences. However, when it comes to money management, personal finance, or funding their ventures, unfortunately, there are not too many forums today to voice their concerns. They are unable to share their challenges and stories, or to even know how their peers and other women at large are handling money management issues. Here's a fun way to learn money matters and enrich your life. Join peer groups on Her Money Talks, India's first one stop financial platform for women. Meet women who've solved their personal and professional challenges in unique ways. Network with women achievers for a much needed dose of inspiration to harness more financial power. Most importantly, with us, you can share your personal stories and challenges and let the world know how you solve them. We make sure thousands of women like you get inspired by these stories and as a result are motivated to take control of their finances. At Her Money Talks, we make a difference to how women manage their money and arm them with undiluted financial power. Through Powering Ahead, a fun and insightful video series featuring women icons, achievers, mentors, and personal finance experts, we address money management and other issues close to your heart. Today we have with us Meera Haridas, who will speak on Step Back to Step Up Your Business. Something that's of great importance to help strategize our businesses in today's new normal. Meera is Director, Verkenner Business Associates, a firm involved in business consulting for transformation, risk management, and talent acquisition. She is also the Vice Chairperson, CII IWM Kerala. She successfully mentors women, both entrepreneurs and professionals. Meera has rich experience in the banking and financial sector as well as healthcare. She has been instrumental in bringing effective strategies and innovative business practices as head of marketing and corporate communication in large public and private sector organizations in the BFS sector. She's worked with organizations like UTI Mutual Fund, Bank of Baroda, and Manappuram Finance. Meera has been a guest speaker for executive development programs at various prestigious institutes like National Institute of Bank Management Pune and NIT Kozhikode. She's also been an adjunct faculty at Wellinger Institute of Management and has published articles on various management subjects. As a member of industry bodies like the Institute of Directors, Kerala Management Association, she has been a speaker on many eminent national as well as state forums. Last but not the least, she was listed among the most influential marketing leaders 2016 by the World Marketing Congress. Wow, that's quite a list of impressive achievements, isn't it? A very warm welcome, Meera. We're really excited to have you here with us. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashwati. And thank you to Her Money Talks. It's a great pleasure and honor to be on this forum. And really wonderful to be being able to share my experience and, be of a part of some of been a part of a lot of organizations in terms of their brand journeys and marketing journeys. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of my experiences and sharing with women entrepreneurs here. The forum, I understand, is looking to support women entrepreneurs. And in the context, typically when entrepreneurs set off on their business journey, it starts with a wonderful idea, the the passion with which you start the concept or the idea, it moves forward from that, and you get caught up in developing a wonderful product and then move on from there And then after that, sometimes we have challenges in terms of actually getting to our customers. So that is where I thought I could share some of my thoughts in terms of how you can step up in these tough times. So the topic for the day, which I have put through, I'll just share the screen. So today we are at a very, very unique place as organizations across the board. It doesn't spare anybody, whether you're a big or a small or a medium enterprise. And the real challenge in today's times is that the COVID-19 has been the invisible virus, which has been a great equalizer across the board. So we're in a very difficult and different times. Yet I think man lives on hope, and it is in those thought processes that really drives everybody to see that they achieve their best. So sometimes when in such situations we are, it's an important place to sometimes step back and then step up your business. So this is where I wanted to share the thought. So I call it business in VC and business in AD. In fact, I shared some thoughts sometime on some forum. So BC is before Corona 19. It's almost a milestone. It's a kind of a epoch which is ended in one and started on another. So we have BC, a business before Corona. The context was very different. It allowed people to think very differently. It was a place where they were in the last, if you look at the last 2 decades, particularly if you from an India context, the growth has been immense. There has been huge aspirations, and there has been a lot of young entrepreneurs who have entered the system and seen a lot of success. So that has aspired more and more. There's nothing like success becoming very infectious, and that really had inspired a lot more people to try their own. There have been a lot of new generation entrepreneurs who are the first time, and they have also shown the path for many others. However, the new context. In the new context, you see that business after COVID is going to be very different. In fact, industries that we thought were there forever and ever has to now sometimes pull their uh, books, or they might have to relook at themselves. But whatever be the context, whatever be the scenario, going forward, it is a unanimous voice that has been coming out from industry across business owners saying that things have changed. Things have not changed just for the business, it has changed for you as an individual. And therefore, the opportunities for countries, the opportunities for sectors, the opportunities for the economy as a whole is completely on a different plane. And that is where one has to actually, as small entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs or young businesses, one has to relook at oneself to take this forward. So the transitioning. So far, as I said, there's been a lot of comfort zone in the last many years. And typically, if you have set off a business, you have built it in a certain context. Every business runs in a context, runs in an environment, and it is decisions are taken within the ambit of a few opportunities or the environment that it operates in. And therefore, there is an element of comfort zone that sets in over a period of time, and you have seen and timely tested certain models, business models, certain options, certain distribution models, certain even the employee practices, the culture of the organization. There are all these aspects which have entered into a comfort zone, and you are seeing the trajectory was going to move only in one way. However, this new opportunity which has been presented for us through the kind of pandemic that the whole world is facing, it requires a huge mindset. And mindset would be not just in terms of the social aspects or the economic aspects, it also has to, one has to think and understand in terms of the financial aspects it also goes into a massive change in terms of the lifestyle aspects. You'll find that a lot of changes are going to, either we're going to have it as a natural transition, or you're going to have it as something that will end up you forced to make that mindset change. So either way, one of these, the entrepreneur has the challenge of transitioning through this change process. Now, change is not new, frankly speaking. World this COVID period has typically been treated as, the World War, compared with all the past bad experiences that the world has faced in a larger sense. You're trying to get learnings from that, look at those learnings and see if we can apply some of it here, as all history helps us to do. However, this has some very strange kind of uh, anomalies which we are grappling with. Typically, you had a country fighting with a country in the past, or you had a set of countries, one versus the other. You had man nature struggle. You had a struggle in terms of sectors or industries. Today, it's a very universal, all pervading kind of an environment where even man is scared of man. Now, that is a real challenge. If you see, that is the kind of mindset that's going to sit, I mean, that's the kind of social environment or the fabric is going to make a change to. You really have a challenge there. Now, in that context, one of the biggest challenge would be to have the risk management processes in place for any organization. We're actually going to be, like you have a small, say you're having a small boutique. Now you created trendy clothes and it was very popular, and you really had a set of clientele who were doing wonderfully well. Okay, now this boutique was providing ethnic wear probably. The context here, what happens is, now in this new environment with the risk factors that have come in, the wardrobe requirements have come down, and probably you'll have to add or subtract certain things. So there are various aspects one has to relook at. And how do you protect your brand still doing that? Now, when you have a transition like this, we really have to protect the brand, because you created the brand over the last many years, and that all the brands need to protect themselves to see that the customer, prima facie, does not have an issue with the brand and its value. And this also is an opportunity as a part of the risk management and risk mitigation process, that brands are able to communicate to their customers and are able to communicate to their stakeholders that they are committed to them, not just for profits, not just for business, but as organizations. And that does make a difference in terms of the relationship, not just here, but it would be a journey with your stakeholders. So we have this challenges which we have been discussing, and really speaking, we're still finding answers. Even the countries, right from the leadership of all countries, everyone is trying to find the right answers, and there is no right answer at this time. You have a huge economic slowdown across the globe. The world is in a pause mode, and that's a huge issue. Then you have governments, at least the government of India is trying, has actually announced a lot of packages. And one of the important things of reducing interest rates has also been to stimulate spending. So how do you get consumers to go back to the market after being shifted out, closed into a box or into your homes for more than almost 10 to 12 weeks? It really is habit changing again. As they say, it takes 21 days to develop a habit. Now, I'm sure when people have got into the mode of staying at home for about 10 to 12 weeks, you really cultivated a new set of habits in terms of your lifestyle and your spend habits. And that could make a lot of difference when the economy opens up or the lockdowns are removed and you have a new challenge waiting there for you. Because how do you stimulate the demand? And then there is a shift in the lifestyle, in the priorities. So all this, in short, becomes a new social fabric that is being woven, and a new environment that is going to be here to stay for quite some time. I'm very optimistic that we will only bounce back even better. And it has repeatedly, history has shown that. You saw the debacle in 2000 after the dot-com bubble. There was a huge bounce back in a span of 5 to 8 years. Then the world, again, there was banking crisis and other financial crisis across the globe, and in 2008, 2012. But every time the situation changed, the bounce back was much bigger. So today, when we are in a trough, it is only possible to move upwards. It's a question is finding those opportunities, those answers, those kind of communication where brands will be able to connect with their customers and be contemporary and relevant. That is where our real solution is going to be. So the options. What are the options? There is a pause, there's a rewind, which is happening, and there's a fast forward. It's like almost our musical system, and then we have to play. So to sometimes to reinvent, to restart, we sometimes have to step back. And it has been the world when it came to a pause, literally. And you find that the interesting bit has been that there is the nature has started claiming its rights into the urban congregations, where actually we had stepped into their space. Now, that itself is an evidence of how much we need to step back and pause, rethink, sometimes rewind into what really went wrong and make those changes to move forward. In fact, till the last few years, we've all been talking about the ecological balance and ecological issues. Now, here what happens is I'm finding that there recently when I saw the UK, they were having plastic bags or whatever the bags which were there is being substituted by potato starch bags. So now what really happens in such a situation is you are actually finding alternatives, eco-friendly alternatives. We have all moved to those cloth bags, which was discarded as unfashionable and not not cool enough to be carried along with us. Now these kind of rewind modes had already started. However, this particular environment has reinforced that, and now it is time for us to reevaluate our businesses. So, in terms of the business revaluation, we are required to see who is our audience. Now, that is the key factor which we need to see. Who is the audience? Who is our customer segment? Do we have the product lines which we have now? Do we want to continue with it? That's another huge challenge that we're going to face because, for example, there may be somebody who's producing cosmetics. Now, this cosmetic company may be producing high-end cosmetics, and there are instances which it's happening. Now, suddenly, many of them have moved to producing hand sanitizers. The ones who produced soaps which were expensive have moved to very functional soaps into the mass market. And these are the new kind of revaluation of your business, how fast you can turn around, despite the fact that you will have only about 30 or 40% or 50% of your capacity being utilized because of all these social distancing and so on. So meeting the market demand, evaluating it and moving forward. Again, the product mix, that's something that one has to evaluate. You may have a set of, say, 5 product lines. You may have, uh, you would have decided that you have 5 products which are giving you certain set of, uh, say, uh, revenues. So you have product A giving you, say, you're in, say, cosmetic business, just to take that forward again. You're having cosmetics which are going to give you soaps which are giving you a revenue of, say, 30%. Then you have the shampoos which are going to give you, say, 30%. Then you have face creams which are going to give you, say, 20%. And you have some perfume line which is giving you another 10%. Now you have to evaluate. Now it's possible this 10% actually contributed to, say, about 40% of your revenue because that particular product was a very more expensive line of the product. However, in this environment, you may, as a business owner, want to relook at your options and see whether you want to continue with this or move to something else, or reduce the production of your perfumes and move to more production of the soaps, which will sell more and compensate for the revenue. So these kind of product mixes will have to be relooked at. So the shift in the consumer engagement. Now, how do you get consumer engagement or customer engagement going? This is another huge challenge you will have, because once you have relooked at your business, ultimately it's a function of what your customers will accept as you from you as a brand. And that's where we're going to have some real questions, hard questions we need to ask ourselves. Who are your customers? Okay, it could be a certain, well, are we in the segment of a mass market, or are we having only classy market? For example, the wedding line of clothes, with weddings off the shelf, most of them getting postponed, or they are there in a very low key. You're in a class market, you're in a very specific output, a specific segment, and you need to see to it that it keeps moving. How do you move this? Is your segment, do you want to move the from the class to the mass? Do you need to relook at your segment? Because a marriage, a wedding market, for example, the wedding clothes is not just for the bride, you have for the rest of the family. Now when the wedding itself is not happening in a big way, how do you have that? How do you sell? Because most of them would not want to use, would not bother to buy new clothes when you're probably joining in for a Zoom wedding, or you are in a very close group. So then the requirement for giving away, buying a new wardrobe for a wedding gets reduced. Now that to that extent, the wedding budgets come down now, or you do not have that much of market. Now these are the challenges. Who is your demography? You have the millennials, whether your customer is women customers, whether they are senior citizens. For example, senior citizens today have a huge buying power, and they had been actually a very fairly popular segment in the travel and tourism section, particularly for overseas travels. There were a lot of just retired senior citizens who had the health and the wallet share, who would go on holidays, because after finishing the responsibility, they wanted to move on and see the world a bit. Now, that is one category which is going to come down in this context. So, how do you readdress these segments? You have, whether your customers are the HNI crowd, whether it's in the financial products or in terms of other luxury products, your demography becomes, how do you engage with these people when you still confined to very limited interactions? Typically, luxury products associated with occasions, events, and also, when you're having social gatherings. And now, when social gatherings come off, what are you going to do? So these are questions that one has to ask. And in the process, sometimes you might have to just revisit your product as well as your service USPs. All the unique selling proposition that we had built so far may be quite different from what you're seeing so far. So it is an environment where adapting to change becomes imperative. There are no easy answers to this. And when you're seeing this, what happens is, as a entrepreneur, as a smaller entrepreneur, when you are crunched for both, the market size as well as cash flows, it's going to be very hard. So how do you still keep yourself going, keep it at maybe above subsistence level? How do you reprice your product? These are the challenges that one will have to answer. To give an example about the millennial customers, today the millennials typically tell you, don't sell me something, solve me something. And that's the way they are. They are people who enjoy experience, who love innovation, who are adventurous, who are tech driven, need instant gratification, short attention spans, and they have very low loyalty as far as a product is concerned, because they are very innovative. They always want to seek experience. They're adventurous and they want instant gratification. So your loyalty, as such, this community of millennial customers were always a very big challenge for marketers, very big challenge for brand owners. In fact, we had when we were doing when I was in the bank, have we used to have a tough time because millennials, when we want to grab their attention, there is a I because we were in a public sector organization, the thought process, how do you attract uh, young minds when they are very taken up by the lot of the public sector had a lot of competition from private sector, and they felt that the private sector was giving them a lot more digital options to use their banking account. They were not people who wanted to come and stand in a queue and so on. This was in the early part of, I'm saying, 2000, before 2010 types. And the challenge of attracting young people to the bank, both as employees as well as your customers, requires a lot of work in terms of brand work and creating that mind space in the group. So what we had found was that unless you move with times with technology, and we use technology to ensure that we brought in the customers and utilized opportunities to educate our existing customers also. So we had a huge in the bank, a huge base of customers who were third generation, very loyal, but they were the more conservative, the traditional kind of customers. And when they came down, when their children came, they would like to open it in some other banks in the private sector. Now, when you have to attract this attention, when you have to in terms of customer education. So when we want this education to be done, it could be through training, it could be through engagement exercises. It could also be touching base with customers at your touch points like your branches or your online stores and in-store experience. We also worked at that time, we thought of one thing. When we said we've got to get the customer base younger, we went and rebranded the bank completely in 2004-5, and then we moved from there and took it to a different level. And one exercise which I personally was a part of and I initiated and led it, fortunately, I had the opportunity to do it. We ended up holding a painting competition for school children up to 12th standard. And this kind of grabbed the attention of schools. Now, why school children in a bank? This was a question even internally we were challenging ourselves. The fact is, typically your brand experience, if you touch them young, especially in the financial space and so on, and for a bank it becomes very relevant. You have an association which you build, which is very strong association, which you can build at a young age, and that experience, that uh, affection, it's like growing love for your school. You kind of build that brand affinity and go go on to continue being a customer. Now, that was the thought process. And I would be very happy to say we had some very good experience because we ran the program for about 2 years, and we had this painting competition. At the end of it, we had our own mascot for the Bank of Baroda, and we used that brand to that mascot as a character for their drawing competition, and they were allowed to play around with it, which allowed us to see the creative innovation. We had several interactions with various schools, about 3,000 plus schools in the country. So that kind of, created more experience and interaction between the schools or the institutions and the parents and the children. And it actually led to an exponential growth in the business in the retail segment, particularly related to minors. And the gifts were also given in terms of credit card and what do you say, gift card, FD deposits, and some collaterals which had our branding, very strong branding to all the participants. The winners were getting FDs and things. So when we gave cash gifts, we didn't give them cash, we gave them fixed deposits. So these kind of innovations, when you engage with the customer, we find that the response becomes stronger, the allegiance becomes stronger, and the loyalty building happens. And in fact, when 2 years it ran across, we also use their paintings and all for calendars, coffee mugs, and so on. The children were so excited, the schools were so proud, and we had even queries coming in asking us, what do we can we have it run for a third year? For whatever reasons, we decided not to continue it as a long-term thing, but it was a very exciting journey for them. So these are the kind of engagements that we would kind of look forward to taking the customer forward. And this is the kind of thing that is required. Of course, every business will have to evaluate it may not be very costly to do it, but it would be requiring to reinvent yourself so that your customers start competing for you. It's not that you compete with your competitors only. The customers start competing for you. And I think this is really found in, uh, in the FMCG, in the food segment. We find that as if you are a consumer of a typical masala podi, maybe you will be going for an Everest chole masale, or you would go for a XYZ sambar podi. Now, sambar powder. What really happens, the lady of the house, she has allegiance on that brand shelf. She's seeing the sambar powder or the chole masale or the whatever other turmeric powder, whatever. She's used to using a particular ingredient of a brand. It, there are low loyalty products, but the brand for that particular product remains strong. And how do you communicate with the customer when you see your product mix and your certain lines of product giving you better revenue versus some others which you have introduced? So you have to create a balance between that and see to it that you continuously reinvent, because here actually what happens is the customer is competing for you on that shelf space. So they pick up one versus the other. So it's a very interesting psychology of the customer that one needs to understand who your basis your customer and then take it from there. Step up. Now, when you've stepped back and reevaluated yourself, the next is to step up and fast forward and then play. Because if before playing the game now for the better, we need to visualize how the future is going to look. For example, the mask. The mask is going to be a part of our life for next at least 2 to 3 years. And going forward, maybe that will become a habit because pollution is not really going to come down in a very big way. So when that happens, how are we going to use the mask? Already, I found a lot of independent entrepreneurs as well as large, larger boutiques and shops, and of course large factories producing masks. Now you have people who are on the fashion segment, they're trying to make a fashion statement of the mask. They're making it a dress accessory. So you're creating an environment where you're actually going to have mask as a product. You're reinventing a new accessory. Now, what happens to when you're going to wear a mask and move around the whole place? I have a different take here. I sometimes see maybe the lipstick segment will have to now relook at itself, whether it's going to be sold at the same level as it was, because the mask is going to cover you. Now, these are, as brand owners, one has to really challenge oneself to find those answers. So you have to answer the new language of a new environment and reprioritize and probably create the new touch points that are required to reach your customers. So we have to rediscover the C's, and these 6 C's, I believe, would be very, very important for the customer to, for a company to take forward itself, for an organization or an entrepreneur to move forward. The interesting bit is customer is the priority, of course, there's no doubt about it. But how do you keep this brand curiosity going? Now that's where we're going to have a real challenge, because in an environment where people are not going to the stores, they are not, especially I'm talking in the context currently of the B2C market, the business to consumer. In the retail space, you're not going to the stores, you're not seeing them. So in such an environment, no look, no touch, no feel, you have to still remain there. So the curiosity of the brand has to be retained. In fact, some of you would have seen Amul has been spending a lot on their ads in the television. They're coming on with their pizza, cheese ad, and they're promoting milk. They're promoting all their range of products. And this is basically the brand building during this period that they are utilizing, taking advantage of the home cooking that's happening. Next, in terms of the cooperation, this is an environment when things are not good. In a competitive landscape, we need to draw upon all the competitors to get together and see how you can cooperate and develop your own sector or your own industry or the product line that you are in, because that is what will hold together. Now, if you say cooperate, it's possible. It is only one way. You help somebody and he moves up the value chain. But remember, if you don't cooperate to support your supply chain or your suppliers or your distributors, it is not going to work in an even fashion for all of us to be functional. So that has a very, very important role. And now, when you see how do you further go about moving the brand from cooperation to collaboration, and collaboration is a very, very imperative thing in this environment. Because if we see collaboration, it requires to work as partners. In fact, recently there was an ad which came out, a full page ad during Akshaya Tritiya, and three big jewelers of Kerala got together and they had one simple message: buy your Akshaya Tritiya, we'll do an online voucher, we will have it delivered to you, and you stay at home and you stay safe. That is true collaboration, because typically these three brands I've seen, they have been real competitors. But in an environment like this, if they take the march together hand in hand, the category of that particular product, the jewelry or the gold coin, whatever, would actually be able to sustain in the long run in a better manner. And what does the consumer read at the end of it? They start looking at the product and the brand ownership, the brand reliability of these three brands are equal. So actually speaking, the three owners who got together, three business owners of these three brands, when they get together, they are actually saying that, okay, we are not better than each other, we are equal partners and we'll still be serving you best. In that concept, how do you best communicate to your customer? Now, communication, of course, is the basis of how you manage your brands and how you finally get your customers on board. So that is where our real challenge is coming, because when you have to communicate today, what is the language you're going to use? What is the medium you're going to use? And you will have a really different kind of an environment on that. And then cost. That is again another huge challenge for entrepreneurs, because unless we are able to hold the cost down and make it effective, we're not going to see this kind of branding that's or communication or the customer connect that we are looking at. And so finding the most cost effective media, it could be digital, it could be what do you say, electronic media like TV or radio, or it could be the newspaper, or it could be just personal connections which technology today provides in different ways. It could be blogs, it could be blogs, whatever. The variance of it I'm not getting into, but how do you utilize the medium most effective for maintaining a low cost and at the same time high touch point or high touch or a high impact communication? That is where the content will come in place, and how you propose that content to touch the customer. So I would say, in short, you have your story, which was built with a lot of love, your brand story you created over the last few uh, months or years, and you have given wonderful service to your customers. Your customers have a fantastic image of your brand, but today it's a time to probably tweak it. You need to rewrite it. You may need to reinforce it. You need to reinforce it rather, but tweaking and rewriting would be imperative in whatever the context is. Even if it's probably a soap brand or a food brand, which is still having a good market, even they have started rewriting their stories from just hygiene to the environment where you have to protect yourself. So the conversations have to be rebuilt and you have to reconnect with your customers on that. So adapting to the new normal, yes, what was considered cool may not be so cool anymore. So what we thought was fashionable may not be fashionable. You'll have new sense of fashion. So probably when the 80s and 90s, when the jeans probably is a classic example, which was a workman's dress which had come in, it had become a very cool high-end fashion. Ultimately, it has evolved into. So today the workloads also, when people are working from home, the context of dressing itself has changed. You would not want to get into formals. You would remain in casuals. So then those who are producing formal clothes, do you want to relook at it? Do you want to relook at the design? Do you want to reorient your communication to your customer? Cooking at home. So far so good. People used to, you have seen Swiggy and Zomato, they were actually delivering food to the from the restaurants. Now once the restaurants have stopped and people have become aware not to eat out much because of health reasons, what did they do? They have started delivering your groceries home. So that was a quick change of model. In fact, within a few weeks they managed to change that model. They tweaked them. They started rewriting their stories from being just a from being a delivery for food delivery to probably your delivery of other articles. You have even from one house to another, if you want to move things, some of these last mile delivery companies and startups have started doing that. So it's a question of reorientation. Entertainment, your entertainment so far, going to the concept of moving the school. I have seen, earlier we used to have school excursions which took you to a park, a big place, a zoo, some monument, and so on. Of late, people have been taken from Malappuram or Thrissur and brought to Lulu Mall for in Cochin for a school excursion because they were wanting to give them a mall experience. So the form of entertainment for even children from even an academic environment has changed. So in that kind of a context, now with this current, the concept of entertainment wherever there is social gathering is being restrained. And if even if the government does not restrain, people will be out of sheer the environmental forces would look at from a health angle to restrain themselves, whatever be the outcome. However, you have a new form of entertainment. Probably people are more addicted to seeing the Netflix and the TVs and so on. Now, when you're getting into that, your communication again has to be rooted through those channels where you can reach out to them. Rediscovering hobbies. It appears, in certain countries, that what do you say? The gardening products have started finding new sales and boost because people are now sitting at home confined to their houses, so they want to do more gardening. It's summer in Europe, they want to move into that. Here also, we find a lot of offers coming in from gardens and nurseries saying we'll come and set up a vegetable garden for you or whatever. The other aspect is the family time. Again, that is redefined now because people are working from home. There are a lot of changes that's happening, and therefore you find that the entertainment, the family time, the way the hobbies are developing or going back to old hobbies and so on have made it different, or you will have elements of new coolness that is being defined. So create the new pool, be a part of the new pool journey, okay, of your customer. And if you're in a uh, B2C kind of a model, your real challenge would be to see that you make those changes to ensure your final customer is able to touch base with you. Even for example, earlier we had this products like insurance or financial products, investments. Typically, they are sold on a face-to-face basis. Today, insurance companies are investing more on digital. While we had digital aggregators coming in on board for retail products, even then, certain products like life products and all require a lot of personal advice. And I'm sure her money talks themselves would understand that. But today in this environment where you're not going to have personal conversation, it's going to be digitally. You will have video calling, you would advise the person. So that face time, which is moved from face to face, it will be face to face but in different mediums like we're doing today. So that is the way it happens in terms of readapting yourself, rewriting your story, and reinforcing yourself. So the new thing is the comfort for working from home. Then how do you optimize the media? How do you optimize the PR? So these activities will have to ensure you still touch your customers from wherever they are. And for that purpose, the stories will have to change. Their context has to be changed so that it becomes relevant for them to be addressed as customers. You have today agencies will have to collaborate. Earlier, the media agencies, which were actually in competition, they would be collaborating across geographies. There are now film makers who can't make films in Bombay, but they have opportunity to, make films or add films even for that matter, or even the regular films. They are looking at geographies where there is no, I mean, there is low lockdown is opening up, or there are opportunities for them to travel up and do it. So you will have people moving from one geography to another to actually make a film, because ultimately this technology can always help in final uh, production and rendition and so on. So when you see that kind of thing, wherever there was even stiff competition among various players in the same category, they have understood the value of collaboration, the value of cooperation. You have stores, branches now moving online. Businesses, I used to, when I worked for Manappuram, I used to find that we had a product which was initially very poorly accepted. I won't say poorly accepted. It took some time for adaptation and acceptance, because it was basically a gold loan product. Now, typically, I have to pledge my loan, a gold for a loan. I have to physically take that gold as a company. And if the company takes the gold, they evaluate that price and the benefit, and then only you're going to put the you're going to put a price for it or put the value for it. Now, we've introduced a product some years back on an online gold loan. At that time, the salience was very low because people did not understand its benefits. But today, I think the company has reaped a lot of benefit, because by virtue of keeping an online, you're actually putting your gold in one place in the lockers of that company, and you can online take a loan when you want, repay it online, and the gold is still lying in the locker safe and sound. And whenever you need, it becomes a monetizable product. So you have these advantages coming up when you move online. So there are today organizations relooking at their model with this, especially the ones who have large branches. Are we looking at closing stores, or are we looking at giving the store a minimal publicity and you're moving online for actual sale? So this would also kind of give a very important role in terms of retail. Also, retail will have large challenge in this, because retail typically in the past, what did we do? We went to the retail shops, we were trying the clothes out, we were seeing whether we liked it. There were also options for exchange. All that is now going to change. Companies or the stores will not be able to take back exchange in this kind of an environment. Maybe after some time they may consider it again. Now, in these kind of things, you want to touch and feel the material. You want to see how it looks on you, try it out before you come out and buy it. Now, these kind of things, when it is happening, changes are happening, and moving to an online purchase, then there is to be better engagement between the buyer and the seller. By in terms of the product has to be probably not just the picture or the design, but also probably the measurements, the size, the detailing has to be a lot more to educate your customer, so that they're comfortable when they buy the product. They are not stuck with something which they can't return. So these are things that organizations have to relook at. So as entrepreneurs, you'd have to really rethink and look back at it. The other point which I wanted to say is, all this, thankfully, we have technology which we built, particularly in the last 20 years, the exponential growth in technology, the kind of changes and the kind of reach that we are able to make in terms of unimaginable, virtual touch that we have, really can use this as an opportunity for understanding our customers. So understanding the data, whatever data we have, historic data of our customers and their preferences, probably we need to restudy that. And then we see, okay, we had a set of customers who had these certain specific likes and dislikes. In this current context, we have to do a analysis to see whether that is actually mapping or not. And that would throw light on what is the next step in terms of the communication, next step in terms of the collaborations, next step in terms of the design and the process flows that are actually going to emerge when organizations are going to rewrite their stories. So I just, before signing off, I thought I should use this quote because it looked very relevant today. You can look at the situation and feel victimized, or you can look at it and be excited about conquering the challenge and opportunities it presents. And when it comes from Jack Welch, I think we really need to appreciate that in this current context, it's that we need to look at these opportunities that are being present, and brands can really, as a young brand or a new brand or an existing brand, I think it's a great opportunity to reinforce and find your customers uh, in a not only the existing ones, retaining them, but moving forward to a new set of customers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Meera. This was interesting, very, very thought provoking, and a little intimidating, I must say so, because you really made us confront the dragon. Though I agree that we all need to do that.
Thank you.
So there are some comments from our other participants here today, and I'd like to share them with you. Lata S says that was a good point on buying power. Abraham says that reinventing yourself is a very powerful point. I fully agree with you. And then, of course, we have a lot of questions for you from all our participants who are watching you today. So I'll start with the first one. The first question actually is about the services business. So the person who's asked this says, I'm in the services business. We've done preliminary market research. So we have a fair understanding of my target market's needs, but not completely. There is a case for letting customers decide what they want, but again, they may not fully know what they want. As service providers, we can step in to provide for unstated needs. How much do we rely on customers' stated needs versus guessing their unstated needs?
Right. See, most of the time we believe that customers know what they want. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So most of the time they believe that customers know what they want. The fact is, yes, customers do know what they want, but many a time it is the brands who tell them what they want. And I would like to say the classic case is actually, uh, if you say the ATM machine. Okay. Now, just one point before that. If you look at the services business, particularly say in the financial space, what has the services business done in the financial space? You have actually moved what you typically do internally and made the customer do it. Because the service place, in the service business, what really happens is the experience that you have is on the floor of the shop of that service provider. Or if it is a technology driven product, in terms of the product that you use on your screen, the front end experience. Okay. But today with this technology, what are we doing? We're making the customer do most of the things which the backend was supposed to be doing, or your employees were supposed to be doing. For example, the ATM simply replaced the teller who was sitting at the bank counter. So they gave you a card and you went up to the bank and pulled out the money on your own, which was not so. Earlier, you went and wrote a check, gave it to the guy, he would go and pass it, and then he will give it to you across the counter. You move that transaction to the customer. It's only an example. So in services, most of the time, we are actually moving the experience, allowing the customer himself to create that experience and say that the experience was good. Make him do the transaction, then make him feel good about it and say that, okay, the experience was good. The downside of this is that if he's not conversant with what he has to do, he will have a bad experience. And then, as we all know, one bad customer and you have multiplier of it there. So how do you overcome that? That's where I always believe customer education is the key to getting, particularly in the service sector, to have a satisfied customer. So if he knows what he's letting himself into, when he makes mistakes and an experience does not turn satisfactory, he will start looking at it as an opportunity to learn better. And if you are able to at that time intervene or offer him the facility to learn or understand where he went wrong and give him that guidance, he doesn't want, he's quite okay. Because today everyone knows that technology is really a great enabler, and it can be sometimes a disabler also because of the glitches that can come through. So that is where the service sector will have to move towards in terms of customer education to improve its own quality.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much. There is another question that has come, which says founders will have a certain vision based on their understanding of the market. Investors may come in with their own POV, maybe influenced by the growth or profitability prospects, and rightly so. Sometimes this may be at odds with the marketing POV. As founders and marketers, how do we deal with this?
See, if I have a little different take here. Founders definitely have a vision. And as I said, any founder is driven by a passion before they start even, from the idea stage to move it to a product. So their understanding of the customer may be experience, maybe research, a combination of all that, and they have a certain product ready. Now, if you take a step back, I would say, if an investor has to put their money into that project, he is coming not just for the commercial viability, of course, that is one of his key requirements as an investor. However, they are also looking at a project which would ultimately add value to the system. And you're going to have a scenario where you are having the investor is, if he's a wise investor, which most investors are, he knows that if this founder succeeds, he also succeeds. So his intention would not be just profitability or growth, but would be asking those questions in that direction so that the founder is not going in presumptions and assumptions, but they challenge themselves to see that they are able to answer those profitability and growth questions, to see that they again are able to be successful. And so the point of value, I think that's what marketing POV they've said. Now, the value which you have to put at all this, there will be sometimes challenges in terms of bringing the, you know, uh, bringing a synergy between these thought processes. However, ultimately, every investor is reasonable enough to understand that if the customer is taken care of, if its stakeholders, external stakeholders and the internal stakeholders are taken care of, there is no way that the marketers will, you will not be able to touch the right chord.
Right, right. So, I mean, basically look at the bigger picture than, than only looking
Absolutely.
at one aspect, right? Okay,
Absolutely. So
sure.
I think they should look at investor as their partner to in progress rather than looking at it as looking at them as people who are just looking at you from a just a monetary bit of it.
Right, right, right. So Meera, there is a question which talks about the COVID situation. I'm going to place that before you now. What is the best way to brand ourselves, especially during the current COVID-driven crisis situation?
See, this is a very difficult question unless you really know which sector they're talking about. It's very it depends. Like it's very broad answer. If you see, if it is like, for example, if it's a food product, a grocery product, and you're a brand in the food space or grocery base, there this particular branding is only going to, you can strengthen it through at the POS points, your through your retailers, through your distribution network, which you have to quickly be agile to see that those brands reach home, or you have the online mechanism to reach out to your customer. So then what happens is the communication or the brand, the kind of activities that you will take is the engagements that you're going to handle will be in terms of servicing that particular uh, brand, particular customer. But if you are going to look at, say, formal clothes, you cannot have a brand. What is the best way to brand yourself means you will have to probably look at only keeping your brand recall on the mind of the customer.
Right, right,
So for
right.
that, probably only PR exercise need to be done, and you should do it at a very low cost. Because at this point, in any case, people are not going to pull in a lot of things.
Right, right,
So
right.
that you continuous communication at low cost, maybe through PR, maybe through online discussions, whatever. So that person should actually come, can have a side conversation on this offline on and then
Right,
also
right, right.
engage with you.
So, I mean, the same would go for industries like hospitality or, say, tourism and travel, which again, are very, very badly hit.
That is a huge challenge because the industry is almost come to a standstill. But looking at it, see where the opportunities, good entrepreneurs, how they're looking at it. Some of the hotels are being converted for quarantine centers. We've been hearing about it. So that is an opportunity. They are looking at opening, of course, they are not able to open the restaurants, but whether they can relook at food delivery in a different way, the experience. So reinvention has to happen there. There's no other choice on that. However, it may also not be in the brand space that you are looking at. So sometimes you may have to rebrand or create a sub brand so that your major brand does not get impacted when you finally open up again. So if you're a high-end brand and right now you want to reach the mass market for both your business sustenance as well as in terms of making meaningful contribution to the environment, you might have to step down and get into a mass market. So that is where the difference is going to come. So those are strategic changes that people will have to look at. And tourism again will have a long haul, no doubt about it. But what are the opportunities within tourism? They'll have to evaluate in these kind of alternatives that are available.
Sure. So the last question for the day, what marketing risks can we expect as entrepreneurs during the next 6 to 12 months?
See, the risk actually, it's a very, very pertinent and very good question because the marketing risks that are going to be we are going to face as organizations the next 6 to 12 months is practically anybody's guess. But saying that, I believe that in terms of budgets, this particular, the this particular environment where we are in, if we need to look at uh, our own markets, you have to see to it that the business is made in such a way that we're touching our customers, okay, continuously on a recall basis. Don't go for high cost marketing. Don't go for, unless you have direct relevance. Like again, I come back to the food business because that has direct relevance when home cooking has improved. There are a lot of ingredients which brands which can push themselves. But if you are a brand or a business which is not having a market which is almost closed or it is in a very trickling stage kind of thing, and you have to relook at your model. In such a situation, don't invest too much in terms of marketing, but keep your PR alive. Keep your conversation with your customers alive. If you
Right.
need to customize something, you can do the customization also. You can
Right.
customize products to reach them. So those kind of changes you can make. So, but
Right.
otherwise, I expect that the risk finally not 6 months. It depends on the model, depends on the different sectors, but not 12 months. It could go on to even 18 months.
Right.
But saying that, by then a lot of adaptation would happen, and you'll have to create those risk management processes in your system.
Right. Right. I think this was really enlightening for all of us. And I'm sure all the entrepreneurs who are there with us today will agree, as well as the professionals. So thank you very much, Meera, for being with us here today. Hope this
Thank you very much.
session,
It's been my pleasure.
thank you, thank you. Hope this session was a great learning experience for all of you as well. Thank you for watching, and do share your feedback on our YouTube channel and support this initiative for women empowerment through your comments, likes, and shares. Stay tuned for the next session, same time next Saturday. And until then, think money management, empower yourself and others. Goodbye.